Hello, Uncle. So nice to have you here. I have a couple of questions to ask you. So, the
Mm.
first question is, many Christians still struggle to see their secular professions as spiritually meaningful. So, how can we bridge this divide between Sunday worship and Monday work?
I think that's mainly because the Bible has been considered as a religious book rather than a reality book. See, when you say that it's the Word of God, you are almost looking at it purely from what I can see it from a religious point of view. That the Bible is actually about looking after God's creation. That is how it begins.
Yeah.
His first commandment is about our stewardship of creation.
Yeah.
And even in the Great Commission, about which we talk so much, you notice that there is a small phrase at the end of the 30th verse teaching them to obey all that I have commanded you. What would Jesus have taught his disciples? Only from the Old Testament. He
Yes.
would have told them about the way to look after creation, which means it's really so the secular sacred divide was not there at all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think I can go on, but
Yeah.
let's, yeah.
Yeah. So, the second question, how does the fall distort our experience of work? And what does redemption practically look like workspaces today?
Okay. Now, what God directly tells Adam, his first commandment actually was to look after the land
Yeah.
in Genesis 2:15. But what you see happens Genesis 3:17 onwards, the work becomes toil. See, some Christians actually think work itself is a result of the curse. That is because they may have a difficult boss or they may have a difficult working condition. But we must learn to teach Christians to look at the work as a calling from God. We use the word calling only for Christian work.
Yeah.
Now, I was in the government for 28 years and then I joined Ardharam.
Yeah.
I told the person, don't ever say LT worked for the government for 28 years and then he received a call, as if that's a complete washout.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, that is our almost involuntary thinking.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is how so that has to change.
Yes. Yes.
It is going to be a slow process. It's not going to happen suddenly.
Yeah. My question is related to what we just spoke.
Mm.
What's the difference between career, calling, and vocation? How do we discern God's purpose for us in a world obsessed with success and self branding?
Correct. See, basic vocation, if you really look at it, is for human flourishing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is what he says in verse 28 of Genesis 1. He says, be fruitful and multiply, normally is taken purely as having many children. What God is actually telling Adam and Eve, you are to work for human flourishing and the flourishing of the whole of creation.
Yes. Yes.
The creation care is hardly spoken of in Christian circles these
Yeah.
days. But in fact, some of our Hindu friends may deal with it, but for them, creation itself is divine. If creation is divine, why should it be looked after?
Yeah.
That will be a logical thing for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
God puts creation under our charge so that we don't exploit creation.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, in my opinion, the first vocation
Yeah.
for us to be human,
Yeah.
because everything that happens around us is to make us less than human.
Yes. Yes.
In fact, even AI is going to make us less than
Human.
human, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Then you said about calling.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm developing a fresh idea. Instead of looking for God's will for us as to where I should study, whom I should marry, and where I should work, why don't we ask what is God up to and how do we join His project?
Yes.
When you look at that way, then you begin to understand what your calling. That calling becomes like what you read in Isaiah 6. Isaiah 6 call is very interesting. God doesn't take hold of Isaiah by the shoulder and say, you go. It's Isaiah who's tuned into God. He
Yes.
says, I heard the Lord saying, not to him, saying in general, as if he was broadcasting.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And he picked up the signal.
Yeah.
That is what I mean by calling. That means you are tuned into God's nature.
Yeah.
In
Yes.
fact, Oswald Chambers used to say, when he looks at a mountain, he almost hears the mountain calling, come,
Yeah.
climb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas, if I don't have the nature of the mountain in me, I will not hear that call.
Yes.
So that is how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see, when you come to the career, that is where probably the problem is. See, calling and vocation we can understand from the biblical point of view. But when it comes to career, we are normally forced to kind of adhere to the standards set by the world around us.
Yeah.
That is where we have to stand against.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to measure myself in terms of my salary or even my work, whether it's a high paying job
Yeah.
and the car that I drive or the building that I own
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah.
See, that is essentially the problem of the word career. Now, the word career is morally neutral. I mean, it's not a wrong word. But into that, we read many things.
Identity.
Identity becomes part of that.
Purpose.
Everything, yeah.
Since God is a creator, in what ways does creativity, whether artistic or strategic, reflect His image in us, even in ordinary jobs?
No, that is part of it. I mean, that is how God made us. I mean, God has given him the capacity to be humorous, just play with words and all that. See, that's all creative.
Yeah.
So everything can be, and there is one mistake we make, Rhoda, that we think that in order to glorify Christ, you should always use the word Jesus. That is not necessary at all.
Yeah.
People can see it from the way you behave towards them.
Yes.
No, I have had retired officers whom I have forgotten totally, who send me messages saying that you left impressions of Jesus wherever you went. I don't even really know where it was and how it was.
Yeah.
So I think when, I mean, that is where the spiritual part of it comes. I use the word spiritual very carefully.
Yeah.
Because spiritual is sometimes used by people as if it's nothing to do with the material world. But God made us out of matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think there is a place for the material
Yeah.
world.
So, Uncle, there are three passages in the Bible. One is 1 Corinthians 14:34 to 35, First Timothy 2:11 to 12, and Ephesians 5:22 to 33. So, generally, when women read these passages, they have this questions that do these passages mean women are subordinate to men, or is Paul addressing something deeper about order, not worth?
Okay. Now, when you come to the 1 Corinthians 14 passage, you must understand that it is written to the Corinthians. And if you see the last verse of chapter 14, it says, let everything be done decently and in order. That means Paul is addressing not the issue of women versus men. Even about men, he says earlier, when a prophet is speaking, when the word comes to another prophet, the first prophet should stop.
Yeah.
He should not say, oh, the Spirit of God is not letting me stop.
Yeah.
The spirit of the prophet is subject to the prophet. So it is in that context that Paul talks about that.
Yeah. Yes.
And the 1 Corinthians 11 passage about covering the head, I think I would strongly recommend that people in LFS library or something, you should get this study Bible, NIV study Bible. It's called Cultural Background Study Bible. And there the cultures are dealt with. Now, in Corinth, for example, on a mountain in the middle of the city, there used to be a temple for Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty.
Yeah.
So prostitutes used to go up the mountain, and when they came down, they would let their hair fly in the air to attract customers. And it could very well be that Paul's view of saying that they should cover their head is because of that. Now, in our own country, Christian women in Tamil Nadu have no problem wearing flowers in their hair.
Yeah.
But you will hardly see a Malayali Christian wearing flowers in her hair because in Kerala, prostitutes only wear flower in her hair. So that is a very clear distinction.
Yeah.
There is something else in 1 Corinthians 11 which I want you to notice. The third verse, what Paul actually writes, I want you to realize that the head of the woman is man. The head of every man is Christ, and the head of a woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. That's
Yes.
what Paul says.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to deliberately pervert his statement and say, suppose Paul had written, I want you to know that the head of the woman is man, the head of man is Christ, and the head of Christ is God, then you would think it's a hierarchy and the woman is the lowest. No,
Yeah.
no, that's not what Paul meant. What Paul is saying, the head of the woman is man. He is talking in terms of making a comparison between Christ being the second Adam
Yes.
and the woman being the church.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the other two, the head of the woman is man and the head of Christ is God. He is equal in status but different in roles. In fact, as a tennis fan, I often think that the International Tennis Federation, which conducts the Grand Slam tournaments, you notice that women play best of 3 sets, singles. Men play best of 5 sets, but the winner takes the same prize money. I sometimes jokingly say they understand this passage better than Christians do.
Yeah.
So that is the problem.
Yeah.
1 Timothy 2 is the passage which is very difficult for several reasons. One is he says, because sin came through the woman, and women will be saved in childbearing. Those are very difficult passages.
Yeah.
I've consulted several commentaries, even a good New Testament scholar like N.T. Wright. When he comes to this, he handles it with a pair of gloves, so to speak, because we do not know what was the particular context Paul was addressing in the churches being looked after by Timothy.
Yes.
So it all depends on that.
Yeah. Another question is, when Paul says women should be silent or submit, is he restricting their value or redefining how they serve within the body?
No, the one commentary I read was very helpful. This again from 1 Corinthians 14 is, you see, first of all, we should realize the background. Before Jesus steps into the picture, you have a problem that women were considered totally subordinate. But in the Gospels, you see the way Jesus deals with women. His resurrection, the first witnesses are women, whereas a woman's testimony was not acceptable in a Jewish court. Now, what happens once the Holy Spirit comes upon the church on the day of Pentecost? And this is what the commentator says, and I don't think it's very wrong. He says women might have gone out of control. So, as I said earlier, the last verse of that chapter is everything to be done decently, only to maintain order, not to say that women
Lesser in value.
Yeah. And the other thing you've forgotten that the passage from Ephesians 5.
Yeah.
Ephesians 5 actually, our translators, they think they are helpful, but they put this heading, wives and husbands, whereas they put it above verse 22. But verse 21, which is where submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ, wives to your husbands. The word submit does not even occur in the Greek in verse 22. Paul borrows it from verse 21. So the wife's submission to the husband is just one aspect of a mutual submission. God tells Eve after the fall, your desire will be for your husband. That means you will use your feminine charm to control and manipulate your husband. So you have to read the submission as the response or a contrast to the manipulation. And what will the man do? He will rule over you. Instead of ruling over, you should give yourself to your husband. So I don't think we should read the Ephesians passage without reference to Genesis 3:16b.
Yes.
The second part of Genesis 3:16 is important.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Uncle.